In today's lecture, we're going to be doing multiple calculations. We're going to get input from the user, do the first calculation, and store the results in a variable. Then we'll use that variable in another calculation, and finally output all the results to the user. I have an application set up called Income Tax Calculator. And on this form, I'm going to need a single text box and then a bunch of labels to display the results of our calculations. So I'm going to start, and I'll drag a text box, a label, and a button onto my form. And the rest I can copy and paste and duplicate, and that way I don't have to keep going over to my toolbox. So I'll need a label for my text box, a label to label my results here, and then I'll copy both of these, doing a Control-C and then a Control-V to paste them out again. I'm going to drag over all of them and set the font to 14 points, and then I can go and resize and fix these. Now, 3 buttons. I'll have a submit, a clear, and an exit. Alright, and I think we're ready to go. I'm going to start by setting the visual things, and then I'll let that drive my naming. We're going to be doing an income tax calculator, so we need the user's salary. And from our salary, we're going to take that number and calculate how much income tax they will owe. And then we will take the salary they entered minus the income tax, and then we'll get to see at the end what they get to keep. And we would say that is the net, or the resulting salary. I'm going to select these 3, and up on top on my layout bar I'm going to look for the align rights, and then also a button where it says make vertical spacing equal, and I'll click that, and that spaces them out evenly. Now going on to this one, I look at the label next to it and I can see that it's talking about salary, so I'll call this one TXT salary. This one we'll call LBL income tax, and I'll go right ahead and make my placeholder text. Now remember, we only do this on labels because we would make them blank, and if they're blank, you can't see where they are. Next one we will call LBL net salary, and the placeholder text on that also. This one will be, I'm going to set the text first, submit, then clear, and exit. So then we get from that btn submit, btn clear, and btn exit. I'm going to go on my form now, and as long as I'm here, I will set the text on my form to income tax calculator, and then I'll set the accept and cancel button properties as well. So my accept will be button submit, my cancel is going to be btn exit. Almost done. For salary, I'm going to give myself an initial starting value to help speed up my testing. We're going to make it 40,000, which is the average starting salary for a .NET developer. Because it's a number, I'm going to take my text-align property and change it to right. Now to do a little code to give myself a little further along the line, I'm going to double-click exit and do application.exit. I want to do this the first time because it's going to make everything go that much faster. And it's really easy to say, oh, I'll do it later. Do it right away. Save yourself the trouble. On my form load, double click, and I'm going to set my labels to be empty. Alright, it's a nice looking form. Last thing, view tab order. I'm going to do text box and then 1, 2, and 3. The rest are labels. We're not concerned about that. Go back to view, tab order, and we're good. As long as we're here, I'm going to do my clear as well. So txt salary.text equals empty string, and then I'm going to clear out these as well. So I'm just going to copy these, go back down, paste, and then don't forget, set your focus back to the text box. Okay, so we have all of our plumbing in place. We're ready to go. I'm going to start it the first time. Alright, labels are clear. Everything is looking good. What we could have done is lined up this stuff a little better, but we can do that last. I think we're good to go. Clear clears out that button. Submit doesn't do anything yet. And then lastly, exit. And we're good. Now we're ready to do the actual calculations. So double clicking button submit, and we're going to do our pseudocode. So as before, we declare variables, get input from the user, do calculations, and output results to the user. Now let's go back to our form and kind of see what it is that we're supposed to be doing. So we see we get the salary, and then what we have to compute is the income tax, and then we take that result and figure out what the net salary is. So in our case, just one line, do calculations, isn't enough because we have a couple steps, and it's a great start, but what we do now is we'll do more comments underneath this. So I'll do another one. I'm going to indent it a little bit. And so the first one we have to do is our income tax. And so what is the income tax? Well, for this particular income in Wisconsin, the income tax is 6.5%. And so you get the income tax owed by taking salary times the income tax. And so that's what that is. So we will say income tax owed equals salary times 6.5%. And then the net salary is going to be the salary minus the tax owed, and then we'll get this. So going back into it, that's our next line. So comments, I'll tab in, and we would say net salary equals salary minus income tax owed. And so now we have our normal 4 steps, but there's a couple additional steps here. Anytime you're doing calculations like this, you always want to try and spell it out the best you can. Math doesn't always speak very clearly. We want to put it in language that we actually understand. So I think we are good to go now. We can start coding. And so what variables do we need? Well, we should look ahead to what our calculations are, and it looks like we need one for income tax owed, salary, and then net salary. because this is money, the best choice would be for us to use a double. So the first one we will do is DBL salary. And we'll set all of these to initially be 0. Next one that comes up in line is income tax. And then lastly, net salary. Okay, now we need to get these results from the user. Now, only one of these is going to come from the user, and that is the initial salary. So we will say DBL salary equals, and again, I'm going to be lazy here because I want Visual Studio to help me out. So I'm just going to say, okay, well, I know salary is coming from the text box. So I will say txt salary.text. And it's going to give me an error message, and it reminds me, what do I have to do? Cannot implicitly convert type string to double. We know how to do that. We use the convert function, convert.toDouble, and then pass that in. Now, this is functional. It will do it. If I hit submit, it will work. But remember, if I type some junk in there or empty, it's going to crash my application. So we know that that's not necessarily the best choice. What we have now is try parse. So I'm going to comment this line out, and try parse goes off of the data type that we want to format. So I will say double.tryParse, and then it expects 2 arguments. One is a string representing the data, so this is txt salary. And then the container that we wanted to take the resulting conversion into. And in this case, that is DBL salary. And this won't work by itself. I'm going to get an error message. We have to tell it that that container is coming back out. And I don't need this anymore. We don't have to leave that in every time. And so now, if it is a successful or a valid piece of data, double salary will have that value in it. If not, double salary will be 0. But either way, we won't have our application crash. Okay, ready for the next line. Following this formula, and this is nice because we can just put the values right underneath it, we can say DBL income tax equals, and then our salary, which is DBL salary, times 6.5%. Now, there's something not right about this, and that is that I'm multiplying my salary times 6.5. And the way percentages work is percentages are really a number out of 100. We say 1%, 50%, 99%, but that is really out of 100. And so this is not going to give us the right answer. We actually have to say 0.065 because this is out of 100. The same thing you could say would be 6.5 divided by 100 because that's really what that is. But we're going to go with 0.065. Next line up, net salary, DBL net salary equals, and then it is salary minus income tax owed. So we have salary, it's in our DBL salary variable, minus, and now we can use this value, which should hold the result from the previous calculation. So it will be DBL income tax. And so what's important to know here is that the order at which this executes. So this formula will be evaluated or computed or calculated first, and then by the time the next line happens, the result of this is going to be in this line. Now that we have all of our results, I can output them to the user. So I'll say LBL income tax dot text equals DBL income tax. It's not going to like that. I'm going to mouse over. Okay, it's a conversion problem. Let's see, this is a string, this is a double, so we have to match up what's on the left hand side. It wants a string, so that means we have to turn our double into a string. Lucky for us, we have some helper functions. So I say dot toString, open, close parentheses. And then lastly, LBL net salary dot text equals DBL net salary. And same thing here, we don't have to wait for our error message, open, close parentheses. Now I'm going to run the whole thing, start it up, and hit submit, and here we go. Looks like 6.5% of 40,000 is 2,600, and then salary minus 2,600 is 37,400. Now it looks right, but whenever we're doing some math calculations, we should always try and verify it, whether it's on a piece of paper or whether it's with our calculator here. So I'm going to say 40,000 times 0.065 equals 2,600. Okay, that worked. Let's do the next one. 40,000 minus 2,600. And that gives us this answer as well. So it looks like our math is working. I'm going to try and see if I can crash my program. I'm going to put some bad input in there, submit, and that works as 0. And our program doesn't crash. So great. Now, one thing I noticed while I'm here is hitting submit should bring our focus back up, kind of like our clear button does. So that's something that we need to add on to the end of our button submit. So I'm going to say txtsalary.focus and then txtsalary.selectAll. Remember, that will select all the text in there so that if we want, we can just start typing again. So here we go. Submit, and looks like we're back in business. A, B, C, hit submit again, and it will select that for us. Now, one thing that would make this a lot nicer is being able to see some dollar amounts on here, and that's something that we just learned, and it is called a format specifier. So it's something that we pass our toString, and we say, you know, it's great what you're doing for us, but we want a little more. And so we give it an argument in between the parentheses, and the argument we give it is a lowercase c, and that stands for currency, and it tells the toString function that we want to get our currency back. So hit submit, and now we have dollar signs and decimals and even commas. Now, usually with programs is you fix one thing and then you go on to the next and you say, oh, wouldn't that be nice, wouldn't that be nice? So we're going to keep going here. And what we should be doing is, since we are working with numeric data, especially numbers, we should be right aligning this as well. So going into our form here, I'm going to select these two, go up to my layout bar and right align them. And then I can see they're kind of over, so I'm going to use my arrow keys and make them lined up nice. And in fact, what I can do is select all three of them and right align them. And I said we were going to go back and fix this as well. So what we want to do is line everything up. So now select this, and there's a bar for align middles. So I'm going to do that. Remember to select the one that you want to stay first. So if I select this, it's going to bring this one up. If I selected this one first, it'll bring this one down. So we already took care of these. We spaced them out nice. So now go here, align middles, and align middles again. And then now that those are lined up, I'll select all three and align right. So it's like everything is staying right where it is. Let's run it again. I hit submit, and what happened? It's all lined up on the right here, but it didn't work because what happens is the numbers will resize according to the content. And up to this point, that's been a good thing. But we don't want that here because we want everything to align to the right-hand side. So what we have to do is we have to turn off, I'm selecting both of these, to turn off on the label the auto size. We're going to set that to false. And we'll get a little bit of messed up stuff here. That's okay. We're going to resize. And select these both. And we're going to right align them. But that's not working. And the reason it's not working, although it's now a fixed width, which I'll illustrate, which is great, but it's because the text is left aligned. Just like in our text box, we want to right align that. And this is a little different. With our text box, it says left, center, or right, but when we click this, it gives us this sort of this series of buttons. Right now it's on the top left. We're going to go over here and we're going to click the one that's in the upper right hand corner. So that resized it a little bit more, and now I'm going to click text box first, my other two labels, and then try and right align them again. Let's fire this off, and there. Now we're looking good. And this is precisely why you want to right align data. Is you'll see that when we're working with numbers, the decimal points line up. And this is so that it's kind of a carryover from paper ledgers, but you would be able to add everything up much easier. Okay, so now we have a nice little salary calculator. And we can see that these applications are becoming more and more useful. What's left is we should go back and we should make sure that we've commented everything out correctly. For our application exit, we'll say closes the application. Form load, clear out placeholders. Button clear, clear out all input and output. And then for button submit, we're already fully commented. With maybe at the end, we could say return focus and I think here might be a good use of a comment as well, because we do want to sort of describe what it is that we're doing with this C. So we can say output results to the user. You can say display values formatted as currency. And that's our entire application. Really, what we did here that's new is we took the results of one calculation and we used it in a next. And that's really what you will do in applications. It's a series of formulas, it's a series of processes that you're really working on the data. Rarely would you have an application that would just do one formula. You would derive this from a previous result. And it wouldn't just be data that would come from the user. You might be pulling data from a database or a web service somewhere, maybe from a spreadsheet or from a stored file as well. So it's really about working with one formula or one computation and then using that results in another one.